people and politics led him to be selected as a youth parliamentarian for the constituency of Naparima in the parliamentary debate hosted by the National Advocates for a Youth Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago in 2010. His love for children and compassion for the downtrodden can be seen as an attribute of his deep involvement in community activism from an early age. He is also the founder of Project Reach, a non-governmental organization geared towards helping the less fortunate in society. In 2007, from a young age of 14 years old, he became active in the party politics within the folds of the United National Congress and has been keenly involved since then. In 2013, he went on to become one of the youngest individuals to serve on a state board when he was appointed as the director on the Council of Competitiveness and Innovation under the Ministry of Planning and Sustainable Development. At age 23 in 2016, he entered electoral politics as he fought the Reform Manahambra seat for the United National Congress in the local government elections. Subsequently, he won the election with a landslide victory, thus allowing him to become one of the youngest local government councillors, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but in the entire Caribbean region. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Political Science with a double minor in International Relations and Public Sector Management from the University of the West Indies. He also holds a certificate in Public Administration from the University of West Indies and a certificate in Legal Studies from the Chartered Institute of Legal Executives in UK. He remains an advocate for youth involvement in politics, a cause he has championed for the past 5 years, and his vocal activism for access to education. Please put your hands together and welcome your councillor and the next candidate for Reform Manahambra, Kris Hosein.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
Thank you very much, Alvin. After such, in the local parlance, we just say flams up. Well, after Alvin flams me up so much, I hope I could be able to do some justice this evening. Let me first start by acknowledging my colleagues at the head table, the Member of Parliament, your very hardworking Member of Parliament for Naparima, the indomitable Mr. Rodney Charles, a veteran politician in Trinidad and Tobago, and maybe someday, or maybe tonight, she'll tell you how I know her as the Pilau story, the Honorable Senator, the Honorable Khadija Amin. Let me also acknowledge my friend and brother, a firebrand in his own right, the bombshell in our parliament, Senator Saddam Hussein. And of course, let me acknowledge probably the hardest working chairman of any regional corporation in Trinidad that has ever seen the position of chairmanship in Trinidad, the one and only veteran politician in Princestown, Mr. Gauri Rupnarayan. And of course, let me also acknowledge the presence of my family here, and I say my family because all of you, I feel like I have such a close bond with you. So tonight, the fiery speeches are good, but when I look out here and I see your faces, I feel like I see so many familiar faces. I feel like I see you when I go to check your roads and your box drains, when you tell me about the mosquitoes, when you tell me about the potholes. Yes, Mr. Budu Singh, I remember that one pothole still. So I look out tonight and I see a very diverse audience, and I'm happy that this platform has attracted persons from not only Reform Manahambra, not only from the Naparima constituency, but from other districts and other parts of the country. Representing some of those districts are my colleagues in the council. I see we have Councillor Ramdan is here, Councillor Matura, Councillor Laurent, and of course my neighbor who has helped me so very much, Councillor Vashti Suku. And I think you all should give them a round of applause. They really make things run smoothly at the Princestown Regional Corporation. But I also look out here tonight and I see persons from Chaguanas, from San Fernando, from Princestown, from St. Augustine, from Arima, some of you. And tonight I want to thank you for accepting my invitation to join with me as I mount this platform, as we mount this platform to fight back against the oppression of this Rowley-led PNM government. So to those of you from the outside, let me say welcome to the very beautiful Reform Village, where the warmth of the people is second to none. You know, I always consider Reform to be my second home. I'm here so often, and when I'm here, I usually take a little while, whether it's Old Talking by Tanti Doolin or by Tanti Monica, by Mr. and Mrs. Adar Singh, wherever I go. So much so that if I ever tell my mother, Mom, I just go in Reform to come back, she'll very casually roll her eyes because she just say, you going there to build house? And so I would also like to say a special thank you to my colleagues at the head table for joining this platform to fight against the injustices that we face today at the hands of the Keith Rowley-led government. And right off the bat, I mean, this is not scripted. About less than 5 minutes ago, I received a message, a PDF document on my phone, actually. And I had it printed, thank you, Diana. And what it is, it's a letter that was sent, that was given to a young man. I understand that the man is married and his wife is pregnant and she is due to deliver her baby sometime in November. This gentleman was employed at UTT, and he was given a letter dated today, the 30th of August. And the letter starts by saying, as you are aware, the University of Trinidad and Tobago is undertaking a restructuring exercise. This has resulted in your services in the position of, I won't say the position, becoming surplus to the requirements of the university based on the positions required in the revised structure and an application of the principle of the last in, first out, LIFO, for the management students you would know. And the letter goes on to say very much, you know, how they have loved his service for how many years and so on. And they say based on his continuous service, and it outlines his salary and everything. And it ends by saying, the university regrets having to take this course of action, which has become imperative due to its current financial circumstances. We thank you for your valuable contribution and service during your employment with the institution, and we wish you the very best in your future endeavors. This letter caused tears to run down the eyes of that young man today. And I feel like I feel it in me. Because I have so many friends who are young professionals and they face the chopping block in the same manner. And this is what young people have to face under Keith Rowley and his government. Do you think that is fair? From tomorrow morning, this young man has no job. He has a wife who will deliver her baby in a few months' time. How is he to see about his family? How is he to raise a child? Trinidad and Tobago has become so increasingly and so exceptionally difficult to live. And this is what we face in Trinidad and Tobago, because I believe somewhere along the lines, something happened and we made a very big mistake on the 7th of September in 2015. And today, all of us, you know Mr. Espine, he said all. Well, tonight I want to say all of us are paying for that mistake in some way or the other. And I deviated a little bit, but I do feel as though we have so many things we must speak about tonight. And time will only permit me so much. You would have heard about some of it from our speakers before. But tonight, before I go forward, I want to give you some insight into what this fight really is about. For a while, I had this idea, and for those of you who know me, you know I have my best ideas at some ungodly hours of the morning, 3 a.m., 2 a.m., and I would get up and I would write it down on a little notepad and I would revisit it the next day. But for a while, I had this idea of this platform, and it had been brewing in my mind as a way in which I can shed some light on the issues plaguing my electoral district. And trust me, there are many issues, as you would know. I always thought to myself that someday I would know when it is the right time to launch this platform. But brothers and sisters, that day is today, and the time is now. And I want to tell you that it is not by chance that we are here at the Reform Hindu School tonight. It was very deliberate. Because you see, for those of you who know me well enough, you would know that the issues of the non-completion of the new Reform Hindu School has been one issue that has always been very close to my heart. You may have been following the story in the media, on social media, among your peers, amongst your villagers, and you may have heard the utterances. But this is one issue that I have taken up the mantle to champion, because I do believe that injustice to children should never be accepted. I remember in 2016, before I became the counselor for this district, I remember standing in the rain with some of the parents and the students protesting outside of the parliament. And that was not the only protest. I remember that day so clearly. We were standing outside of the parliament, the rains began to come down, so I began filing the children into the lobby of the parliament. The officers there, the police officers, they came up, they said, not at all, you can't come in here, go outside, and they sent the kids outside. Your MP, Mr. Charles, he was sitting in the chamber upstairs, and I took out my phone and I called him. I said, Mr. Charles, we have a little situation. The rain is coming down, these children are getting soaked, they're not allowing us into the lobby. All that time, there was a reporter, I believe, from The Guardian, taking pictures because he understood what was happening. But within a couple minutes, Mr. Charles left the chamber and he came downstairs in a huff. He was very annoyed at the fact that this is what they were doing to the children. And I remember very clearly, Mr. Charles looked at me on that day and he said, this cannot happen. And he began filing the kids back into the lobby. And he looked at me and he said, Chris, today either me or you will have to make a jail. Well, of course, I was very much afraid because these wrists not really made for handcuffs. But that was not the only protest, you know. You recall just recently, the parents of the students, they ventured onto the premises right a stone's throw away of the new school, and I joined them there, only to find marijuana growing on that compound. Well, you know, I didn't know it was a high school. Can you imagine that marijuana being grown on a school compound? Can you imagine that? When the People's Partnership government left office in 2015, that school was about 95% complete. I walked through that building, and it was something so fantastic for a primary school. If you have the opportunity to go onto our social media platforms, the UNC platforms and so on, you will see the videos when we walk through. And now, 4 years later, the government has done absolutely nothing with the school, absolutely nothing. They have left it to fall into disrepair, and of course, it has now become the garden for some very special herbs. How many times have we begged Anthony Garcia? How many times must the parents protest? Why must our children continue to be cramped into the uncomfortable classrooms with many issues of their own? If you look here, you will see we have the temple. The school is basically squatting on the temple grounds. It is kind of annexed around the temple. Do you think that this is an environment conducive to learning for students? Quite frankly, brothers and sisters, I think that it is a new low for any politician to have innocent children suffering because of political spite and malice. We are 2 days away from the opening of the new school term, and the children of the Reform Hindu School must return to these conditions, while just a stone's throw away sits an incomplete structure where they could have been much more comfortable, had it been completed, of course. But we know where their priorities lie, because right next door is the brand new Brian Lara Stadium. Senator Hosein called it the shed of shame. If you look at the thing, I think I saw a video a while ago. They had a cricket match. And right where people were sitting, there was raw sewage flowing into the... What kind of thing is that? But they've opened that, and they left the school closed. They have left the children's hospital closed. What a shame. Tonight I say, and I want to tell you that I am totally fed up of Anthony Garcia. And I call on the Prime Minister to intervene to have this school completed. Mr. Prime Minister, I ask you tonight to do the right thing for once in your life. Do the right thing and think of the children. You know, lately we have been hearing a lot of talk about local government reform. And of course, school repairs are one of the things that would now be the responsibility of the municipal corporations. In 2016, the PNM campaigned aggressively on local government reform during the campaign for the local government elections. And I find it so interesting that they would wait 3 years later, just on the cusp of another local government election, to rush a bill to the parliament and to send it to a JSC to work out the issues. We have heard the opposition leader outline many issues with that local government reform bill, and it leaves much to be desired. But before any reform could take place, imagine they can't get simple things done under the current system. You know, we had instances in Princestown where we did not have funds to pay scavenging contractors, and garbage was piling up all across the municipality. You remember that? Right here in your community in Reform. Garbage had been piling up in front of your home, spilling out into the streets. Because you know why? Because funds were not released on time for us to pay those contractors, and they decided to not do the job. Can you blame them? No, you can't. They have their families to see about as well. I want to tell you that we are ready and prepared to work, and we have dedicated employees at the Princestown Regional Corporation who are ready to do the work. But because of the incompetence of central government, we do not have the funds or the material to do so. Imagine in 2019, we have to go to the regional corporation, we have to beg for a grain of oil sand. We have to beg for a grain of oil sand. That is where we are today. We cannot patch potholes in your roads. We are ready and we are prepared to do the work, but the failure of central government prohibits that. And I want you to understand that. But I can tell you one thing for certain. Amidst all of these challenges, I want you to understand that I have never stopped fighting for the things that you deserve. I have never stopped fighting for those things, and I don't plan to stop anytime soon. In whatever way, I have made representation on your behalf and have delivered as much of our resources would allow me to. As we move forward, I would gladly give an account of all that I have done at the right time. At our PIC meeting, one of our PIC meetings, the regional corporation recently, I decided to file a question. I don't think that we have ever had that done before the regional corporation. But I decided to file a question to which the administration provided details on the work that I would have done throughout this district. And I did so because I want you to know, don't take my word for granted. Let them tell you. They are the administrators and they are unbiased. Today I could stand here and I can tell you about the drains that I lobbied for, and that was built. I can tell you about the drains in Douglas Street in Mount Stewart, in Annan Circular Drive, in Tatico Avenue, Cooperative Approach, Munan First, Munan Second, Mahabal Trace in Palmyra, slipper drains in Jalim Street. I can tell you about the box drains in Crystal View under my stewardship, but I won't tell you about that tonight. I could tell you about the retaining walls we constructed at the Irie Village Recreation Ground. For the first time in how many years they are able to play cricket on that ground again. That is a good feeling. That brings back a sense of pride into your communities. I can tell you about the drainage projects we ran at the Reform Recreation Ground. I can tell you about the jogging track at the Harmony Hall Recreation Ground. That was something that I picked up along the campaign trail in 2016, and it was delivered within the first 3 months of my stint here as councillor. I can tell you about the retaining wall at the Mount Stewart Recreation Ground. I can tell you about the lights at the Palmyra Recreation Ground, finally after how many years. But maybe I will tell you about those things at another night. I can tell you how I lobbied successfully for the paving of Niamat Avenue, for the paving of Karamat Drive. I can tell you how we paved the portion of Friendship Road that was unfinished in Irie Village. I can tell you about the paving of the Margaretwood Estate Road by the Recreation Ground. I can tell you about the paving of the Christine Gardens in Tatico Avenue, right here, stone's throw away. I can tell you about the paving of Temple Street, right behind me, adjacent to this school. And I can also tell you about the start of the paving at Cottage Road, right down the road. But maybe some other time I will tell you about that. Because you see, I think it is a Trinbagonian thing, it's a Trinbagonian tradition to attribute the problems of our politics to the quality of our politicians. When things are bad, of course, the politician is the worst thing out. We know that. Some of us are guilty of it. And when things are good, when the good things happen, well, the politician, we still remain the bad guys. But that's okay. Because after the local government election in 2016, I took an oath. I took an oath to serve this district to the best of my ability, without fear or favor. And I can tell you, not a day goes by that I don't reflect on that. And I keep that very close to me. I hold that oath close to my chest when I execute my duties. A lot of people tell me, boy, you're wasting your time. Where you're running down box drain, where you're going and see potholes. But you know what? That is the job that I signed up for. That is the job that I have signed up for. I can tell you, people ridicule councillors in Trinidad and Tobago. They do it. But they do not understand. They do not understand the importance of local government. I always say, many of the problems that we have in Trinidad and Tobago, that we campaign on for the general elections, the big campaigns, we campaign about potholes in the road and water supply and tea and tech and lights and so on. All of these issues can be solved with local government if we were to have meaningful reform. I remember about 2 years ago, I was right here in Reform Village from around midnight till around 4 a.m. in tall boots, wading through floodwaters. And if some of you who know about that flood, you know that water, the current was so strong it would have pushed you down. Auntie Judy, you remember that? From about midnight till about 4 a.m. And I was prepared to go further, but I think that time it was fasting time. I had to go home quickly to start my fast, and so it was Ramadan time. I went home around 4 a.m. And I was back out again at 7 a.m. until very late in the night, moving through the flood-stricken areas in my district. I spent 18 hours out on the field on that day. 18 hours. 18 hours I spent without having a meal that day. Because you know why? I take my job seriously. You would hear the old talk and so on, but I take my job seriously, and I know that. But these are the things that you would never hear about. What you would hear is the stories of the councillors not building a box drain, or the councillors not repairing a pothole, or believe it or not, you would also hear about the councillor not giving you a grant. For avoidance of doubt, let me just say that, for the record, that is out of our scope of duty, and quite frankly, that is above my pay grade. Rowley cut, Senator Amin will tell you, he cut the grant, so what is there to give? Many times you would hear people say that they don't see their councillor. Every councillor in this country falls victim to that. I as well. In fact, a few weeks ago, I promised myself I was not gonna say this, but a few weeks ago, I was right here in Reform Village about 3 times in 1 week. Monday, Friday, and Saturday. 3 times in 1 week. And interestingly enough, I opened the newspaper the next day only to read a reporter say that I have not been in this area in months. Well, of course, that was news to me. But these are the challenges that we have, and this is because of the inequality in representation and the value for your vote. Mrs. Prasad-Bisesa spoke about that at our recent local government forum. Notwithstanding these challenges, I want you to know that I have tried in so many ways to reach out, and many of you would know that. Of course, the most obvious is I have my office, and I meet people there who have these complaints, and I try as best as I can to work with the council, work with the other agencies to get these problems resolved. I have my mobile phone number. Many of you have it, 753-6882. The phone doesn't stop ringing. You can ask my parents. I can't have one conversation with them face-to-face without going through about 3 or 4 phone calls. I have my office line. I have 2 email addresses. I have a host of social media platforms. You can find me, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Not too long ago, I went further to introduce a new dedicated text hotline, 70-KRIS. That's the number, 70-KRIS. It's 7024747. And this is the number where persons can text me complaints and send pictures and videos of the issues via a dedicated WhatsApp line. And that hotline has been going off 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and I check it. And I didn't stop there. In addition to this, I have also instituted a phone bank at my office, whereby persons at random will be receiving calls to check in, just to make sure everything is all right, and that it will also give you the opportunity to relay issues to me. That exercise began last week, and it is ongoing. Furthermore, many persons would not know about, but at the Princestown Regional Corporation, we have 22 meetings every month. 22 meetings every month to deal with all of the issues throughout the region. These meetings in itself take up a great deal of time, but they are each important in their own right, and they are necessary for the development of our communities. Unfortunately, in local government, we do not have the benefit of televised council meetings where our burgesses can tune in and see what is taking place in the council in the manner in which our parliamentarians do. And I'm very happy that the parliamentarians have this opportunity, and I really urge you to tune in, because you will see how some of our parliamentarians in the UNC, including our own MP Rodney Charles, would hold the PNM and he would give them hell. But nevertheless, we do what is required to get the job done. That is the job of a councillor. You be on the ground and you work. So I want to urge my burgesses to make full use of these avenues in which you can reach me to stay in touch. I'm always grateful when these issues can be brought to my attention so that I can know what are the problems you face and how we can work together to resolve them. Tonight, my brothers and sisters, as I close, we all know that all is not well in our country. I know that you are hurting, and I want to tell you that I am too. You see, I always held that politics is about taking a side, and I want you to know that I am on yours. I am on your side. You know the challenges that we face with this current government. While your country is burning to the ground, you have the likes of Rowley, Faris, Stuart Young, and the rest of the clan moving around the country with nothing but old talk. Labar, labar. You know the old people that say labar, labar. Old talk all over the country. All talk and no action. And I think it is now up to us to take a stand and defend the Republic. My heart bleeds for Trinidad and Tobago, and it pains me to say that on the eve of Independence Day. I love my country too much to let it go to waste. And I want to tell you tonight, as young as I am, in whatever position I am as a counselor, we are on the ground and I work, but I am prepared to go the distance. I want to tell you that you have what it takes, because in a democracy, the most important office is the office of citizen. We can make the difference. Tonight, I want to ask you to stand together, to come together and fight back. I want to ask you to fight back against corruption. I want to ask you to fight back against the neglect of our communities. I want to ask you to fight back against the closure of gate. I want to ask you to fight back against draconian taxes. I want to ask you to fight back against spite dealt out to our children. Fight back against oppression. Tonight, brothers and sisters, I want to ask you to fight back against Dr. Rowley and the PNM. Brothers and sisters, we can and we must do what it takes to get our country back on track. Our future generations depend on it. And as I close tonight, I want to tell you, may God continue to bless you, and may God bless our nation. I thank you.